Welcome to The Prize Inside. The Prize Inside. A chiropractor's journey in everyday holistic health and vitality. Here, your host, Dr. Jeremy Myers, delves into the remarkable journeys of everyday people who have embraced the path to health and healing. Through his practice, Dr. Jeremy encounters inspiring stories of profound transformation and the power of true healing within each of us. Stay tuned as we discuss various holistic topics and unlock the healing potential that lies within us all.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Hopefully you're having a great weekend. Welcome to the 1% Tribe edition to the Prize Inside. It's pretty awesome. Tonight we're going to be talking about Echinacea. One of the reasons we're doing that is because it's starting to become spring in Michigan, and we want to start understanding what we can grow that's literally medicinal for us, and it's really easy to grow Echinacea in Michigan. If you didn't catch it, a couple weeks, I think it's been like 3 weeks now. So we went back and we did beets. Beets are going to be a phenomenal thing for you to grow, especially in like places like Michigan with all those kind of things. There's so much nitric oxide in those that find ways to do it, even if they're not your favorite vegetable. Find ways to put them into your diet because the circulation benefits, the energy benefits, the digestive health benefits of making you non-constipated anymore are definitely ways that beets could be a thing. So each week, I don't know if you've been with us before, 1% Tribe, and Sunday night we go over thoughts, toxins, traumas. So those are the three things that can take our innate intelligence, the intelligence within our body, and interfere with it, right? And so those three things. And so last week we talked about vitality, and then that was in the thought process, understanding vitality, learning those things, right? And then this week is trying to get us down a path of something good for us that would help us with those toxicities that hit us every day. So, and Echinacea is one of those. We know it for a few different things, but there's more to it. So that's pretty cool. Before I start, I want to make sure you guys know to subscribe to, I got to 75 people on Rumble, by the way. So if you go to Rumble, it's called Rumble. It's an app that's like YouTube. It's free. It's do all that stuff. If you get on Rumble and you look up the Prize Inside, a chiropractor's journey with my little logo thing. Oh, I should put that up in the corner. There we go. That little logo right there. Then you can be a member too. So if you get on there and become a subscriber, I can get to like 100, which is my goal for this year. Okay. So that's the number one. We're also on YouTube, Prize Inside a Chiropractor's Journey. We always try to go live on Sunday night and Wednesday night. So Wednesday night, we do Whole Health Weekly, where we do news, holistic news that my office manager Gina gives us a lot of times, and those kind of things. But it is a night. This last week, I got to interview a lady that knows how to mill her flour, and we had a fantastic interview that way. And so I got another interview coming up. Usually I'm guessing it'll be that Wednesday night time frame, but you guys will enjoy that. So tonight, and also to get into our newsletter is it's called tribe1.substack.com. So tribe1.substack.com. It's a place where you can get the transcripts, where I convert this into a newsletter. If you remember those, and I'm starting to write a Tuesday newsletter. So if you're into that kind of information, then that would be the spot for you. So it's called tribe1.substack.com. All right. So without further ado, hopefully everybody's having a great night. We had this beautiful day. This week was crazy because my service club that I do, we got through our biggest fundraiser thing. Went really well. Somehow I got stuck being the DJ, which you can tell I can talk a lot. I enjoy talking, so it doesn't bother me that much. but it's one of those things that I don't know if I'm the best. Like a guy used to say, I have a face for radio and a voice for television. I love that saying. So, without further ado, here is Echinacea. Some surprising facts that we're going to talk about. So, Echinacea for everyday wellness, not just immunity. Oh, by the way, I'm doing a lemon balm tea tonight. That was the other one I was gonna present tonight because it's such a fantastic. I did Echinacea last week, so I try to do one at a time, but lemon balm, oh my God, as a tea, it's like perfect. So, but Echinacea is also really, really good. So Echinacea, remember this flower? Look at that flower, right? It's that purple with the nice little spikes, super easy to grow in Michigan. That's one reason why we're doing this. Echinacea for everyday wellness, immunity, skin, anxiety, and inflammation relief. So that is what is happening tonight. So let's start right off with the history of Echinacea. Okay, so I'll read you a little paragraph here, and then we could talk about it a little bit. Echinacea, commonly known as purple coneflower, is a genus of flowering plants native to North America, particularly in the central and eastern United States, including areas east of the Rocky Mountains, such as the prairies, open woods, meadows in states like Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Oklahoma, Texas, Wyoming, and the Dakotas, eastern Montana, eastern Colorado, and parts of Canada. And you could add that Michigan, it does pretty well here. The plant has a rich history tied to indigenous people, with archaeological evidence of its use dating back to at least the 18th century. Through oral tradition suggests much earlier applications even than that. Tribes such as the Cheyenne, Dakota, Fox, Winnebago, Choctaw, Crow, Sioux, Omaha, Pawnee, Ponca, Teton Sioux, Lakota, and Kiowa employed various species from these Echinacea plants as a versatile folk remedy. Okay, so most of your folk remedies, there was a reason for all of it. It was considered a cure-all for most ailments more than any other plant. So Echinacea, they used for almost everything, right? Used externally for wounds, burns, insects bites, snakes, spider bites, boils, skin complaints, and internally for toothaches, sore throats, coughs, colds, pains, stomach cramps, headaches, bumps, smallpox, tonsillitis, syphilis, dysentery, and even as an eye wash or to stimulate saliva during rituals like the sun dance. Roots were often chewed, made into poultices, teas, or smoked. And the plant was even used for non medicinal purposes like combing hair and treating distemper horses. That's a lot of stuff. This is Echinacea, the little purple thing that we grow up and we're like, oh, that's a pretty native plant, because in Michigan, it literally grows natively. It'll grow over time. It's this nice, beautiful perennial type thing where it comes back over and over, right? And Rachel, we have she does a fantastic area of it. And it's also this beautiful flower. And so a lot of times, when you're looking at all these, let's find out what it does. You know what I mean? And so in a lot of that folklore stuff is, in some ways, it's kind of crazy because it's, in a sense, ahead of our science, because everybody's like, oh, the science hasn't proved that yet. But who that's crazy that somebody already knows it. Does that make sense? I've always thought that was fascinating. Like as we're going, oh, science, it has, they haven't done that research on it. Well, maybe it hasn't done it for stomach cramps, headaches, those kind of things, but it was used that way. So we just remember it's the first one that was kind of our ashwagandha of today. So ashwagandha is this one big one that everybody uses for everything because it's good. It's called an adaptogen, right? So those adaptogens allow your body to get in that homeostatic mechanism. And so with that, with Echinacea, I should look up the class. Dang it. I'll look up what the class is. So the class of Echinacea is, and we'll talk about that as well tonight. But yeah, so that's the biggest thing. And something like ashwagandha, it was catch-all. All right. All right. So here's some more context of the history of echinacea. White settlers adopted echinacea in the 19th century with the first commercial preparation by Meyer's blood purifier, appearing in 1880 for conditions like rheumatism, neuralgia, and rattlesnake bites. By the 1800s, it became the most popular herbal remedy in America, used by folk practitioners and doctors for nearly every sickness, including in animal feed for poor appetite. It spread to Europe in 1895, where it was studied and cultivated commercially, starting in Germany in the 1930s and then Switzerland in the 1950s. Today, echinacea remains a staple in herbal medicine. Through its popularity, it has led to concerns about overharvesting and habitat loss in endangered prairie ecosystems. One reason we're going through the history tonight is that we need to grow it, right? So the way to protect your land like that, or us having this endangered type situation, is to literally plant it as a native plant. And most of us, I know in Michigan, there's areas of just your landscape in general that you could find a place that maybe you don't care if it has a bunch of beautiful flowers every single time. Maybe, because echinacea sprouts and it's done, right? And so maybe there's an area, maybe you have some like weeded areas or something like that you could put that echinacea in. So that's one reason I brought it up. But isn't that interesting? It was like the most popular herb in the 1800s. That's crazy in the herbal remedies. Okay, so now let's talk about the medicinal benefits. Hang on for me and I will find out. Let me see. I should have looked that up first. Now it's just trying to figure out how to spell. Okay. All right. Sorry, guys, for the chart. It is. All right. Well, I'm going to find that and I will. Yeah. I don't know why that's not showing up. I got another place I can look. So as we go, echinacea is going to be, I don't want to keep you too much. The medicinal benefits are pretty cool. So because it's such a modern one, it's kind of crazy. Not more is done in the scientific aspect with echinacea either. Maybe there's not a lot of money in it because you can grow it pretty much anywhere. So maybe that's it. Medicinal benefits of echinacea. Echinacea is promoted for everyday wellness. So that's one reason I want to go over it today. Everyday wellness, particularly immunity, skin health, anxiety, and inflammation relief. With bioactive compounds like alkaloids, caffeic acid derivatives, polysaccharides, flavonoids, glycoproteins contributing to its antioxidant and anti-inflammatory, antiviral, and immunostimulatory effects. So let's go through that. So we have all these different compounds. They're plant compounds. They have lots of fancy names, but these are really good compounds that actually help your body, the cells of your body do things. Okay. So that's why you have these beautiful antioxidants, help get rid of the oxidizing cells. You got anti-inflammatory, calms down and homeostasis your inflammatory cells, right? Antiviral, that'd be a good one. Echinacea is known for that, right? Echinacea is known to be a really good immune system one. Immunostimulatory. So immunostimulatory means it activates or kickstarts an immune system if needed, right? They're finding, though, in the science part, because there's not a ton out there, which is shocking, it's generally safe for short-term use, 7 to 14 days at onset of symptoms. 3 to 5 milligrams of dried herb. Okay, so 3 to 500 milligrams of dried herb is pretty good, and or 2.5 to 5 milliliter extract, which we'll talk about later, up to 3 times a day. But you want to make sure, and then maybe this is why, because they had some side effects were noted. So you want to make sure you can. This one's kind of like a try, and then if you don't feel well, stay away from it. But always in the breastfeeding mom, autoimmune, or other medications, you definitely want to consult a doctor, like when you're doing this, just to see, and a medical doctor more if you're taking a ton of medications. Okay. So as a side, but it has side effects like rashes, nausea, and GI upset. Okay. So those are those. That was my claim to fame. Just consult a doctor. Be smart. Don't be drinking Echinacea. Kid calling it the thing and go, why does my body itch? That kind of happens once in a while. All right. So here's some cool stuff. Medicinal benefits of Echinacea. Immune support. This is what it's best known for. It's best known for reducing the incidence and duration of upper respiratory infections. So it's really, really good for respiration and the infections. Okay. Common cold, common flu, pneumonia type stuff, right? That's where you want to see Echinacea come into your world. All right. This is what's crazy. This was in 2007. 2007, they did a scientific study on it, and it decreased cold odds, so getting a cold, by 58% in that 14 in by 1.5 days. So if somebody started taking Echinacea in cold season, which now I'm going to add this. One reason I do this podcast, guys, I was telling a patient, I go, I don't do this for you. I do it for me to learn stuff. And then this one adds to that one list that we do for when it's cold and flu season. Vitamin Z, or I'm sorry, ZACEs, right? Zinc, vitamin A, C, E, selenium, right? Little quercetin, and now Echinacea. So then you're really getting your immune system ramped up well, and then you don't have to worry about stuff. And Echinacea as a tea, pretty easy to do, right? So the reason it's really good on the immune system, that's why you guys are here, because it actually boosts. Okay, so other reviews showed small preventative effects, but it also boosts white blood cells, natural killer cells, which are immune system cells. Okay, these are all different immune cells. They just have some cool names to them, because especially natural killer cells. Who doesn't want that happening? Macrophages, neutrophils, they're all immune system cells that Echinacea can boost those. Okay. That's what we want. We want your body to do the work, not some drug that's outside of you. Okay. It may inactivate, they're saying also, it may actually inactivate the viruses like influenza or herpes simplex, reduced respiratory complications in children, and helped with ear and UTIs. Though no, the studies aren't there yet on the ear and the UTIs. If I increase all those immune cells that I just said, white blood cells, natural killer cells, macrophages, and neutrophils, do I need this study that says it's going to help other infections in other areas? Okay, so that's how you can see how it's kind of messed up. Sometimes the study, you're like, okay, well, you proved all these immune system cells increased, but then you need a study to say, oh, in this particular one, right? So that's the thing that happens a lot of times with studies. So just remember that might be something that could be a go-to, right? And Echinacea is super light. It's nice. Okay. Anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects, which you didn't know about. Okay. So Echinacea has some nice anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. Phenolics and acrylamides, they have anti-inflammatory benefits. So these, remember, when I'm saying these are like plant parts. So that's all the plant pieces and the plant chemicals. These are the things that make it an anti-inflammatory antioxidant. Okay. So antioxidant, something you want all the time in your diet. Salads, eating fresh stuff. right? You get a ton of good antioxidants because we don't want our body oxidizing. Think of like rust, right? You don't want your metal to oxidize. You sure don't want the inside of your body to do that as well. So an anti-inflammatory, you got some inflammation kind of going out of control. Get these in there and you're sitting pretty good. Okay. So let me read this whole thing. So we just did that. So it's the phenolics, the alkylamides that provide the anti-inflammatory benefits, reversing sometimes bacterial induced inflammation in respiratory infections and neutralizing free radicals to reduce oxidative stress. This may lower risk for neurodegenerative issues like Alzheimer's, possibly. That's a possibility for sure. Now they're understanding that through human evidence because it's limited right now. Because they're starting to figure out that Alzheimer's is a lot of inflammation of the brain as well. Animal studies show wound healing, pain relief, and improved blood oxygen transport is another huge part of what Echinacea does. This one was the one that got me tonight was skin health. So thank you guys. Yeah, get in there. If you're watching this live, thumbs up, heart, wherever you're watching it from, push the little icon button that is under there. It will be fantastic. It boosts our viewership too. But this is the one. Echinacea was fascinating in the skin health, which is kind of neat. And remember, it was kind of a jack of all trades a long time ago. So if you were going to try one, right, try something that's super cheap at the store as a tea. Why not try Echinacea first? Okay, because this is one of those it's nice. It's really good. So topically, its antibacterial, antimicrobial, and antifungal properties may treat acne, psoriasis, eczema, wounds, and slow healing cuts by hydrating, reducing fine lines, and retaining moisture. So preclinical data supports all of this. And even there is some, because they have studied it in boils, like a big zit kind of thing, and infections. Okay. So that's kind of cool. Like having actual Echinacea as a topical ointment. Now, when you hear how they used it in the old days was a poultice. So a poultice is like where you'd actually chew the root of the Echinacea plant and then you make it into like gooey gummy, and then you'd stick it on the topical area. Very, very similar. Shoot, I have another. Mullein. Mullein has a very good effect like that too. And mullein is like a dang weed around here. So, but in a first aid situation, let's say a kid cut themselves. Mullein, you could make a poultice, which is like making sure you get it wet with your saliva. The saliva is labeled to break it down a little bit, make something out of that, and then stick it on a wound. That is something that Echinacea can do as well, which makes sense. Because it can sit right next to mullein. All right. So medicinal benefits of Echinacea continued. This is another crazy one that no one knew about. Anxiety, and other potential benefits. But this does have limited evidence compared to other things like chamomile and all those. But limited evidence suggests that anxiolytic effects in animals and possible benefits for blood sugar, hormonal balance, and even anti-cancer properties. But more research is needed. Overall, while promising for colds and immunity, results are inconsistent, and it's not a cure-all. Combined with healthy habits for best outcomes, blah, blah, blah. We know that, right? It's all with every herb. I would hope it would be something that you want to listen to your body on. You want to listen innately. Like for me, it was when I learned about tea and the herbal aspect, like as a dudes don't get into like tea drinking necessarily, but then you start doing it once in a while. They're really doing it. Honestly, with a beer, what's in beer? There's always got to be some hops in there. So why a beer a day tastes great? Why does hops taste great? A beer a day at night, once the day is done, it's a calming effect to you. Okay. It's not because they just decided that alcohol was their thing. Just beer has this nice calming effect. And really, that is why guys gravitate and grab like a beer a night, right? So then it gets into a trouble and then the beer doesn't work, that kind of thing. But there is a reason, with that kind of aspect. So like hops being there, that relaxant feeling. I've searched that to tea, and there's a lot of teas out there. Many of them, just because of the warmth, the different flavors, like those kind of things, actually put you in a really, really good place. Um, and it takes away that alcoholic situation where you're not hitting your liver as much either, right? And you're doing actual, like what we do in 1% Tribe is we look for things that increase our health every day. A beer a day is not necessarily going to increase your health every day. If you'd get my drift, it's not going to. Guaranteed that, right? We're looking for those positive movements towards things. Okay. So that's pretty interesting that it can help with anxiety and some other things. Like it acts like essentially an adaptogen, absolutely like an adaptogen, which I want to find that. So I'm going to try, but I'm not going to keep it quiet here. See if I can get in. I have this one website that I did this huge, they're called like mind maps. And this mind map situation is so cool. You can spread it out like all over the place, but it was really difficult to, I think it's like a European herbal actions. Let's look. Site. So well, let me see if it's in the adaptogen category, because we're going to go over those again this year, just the different categories. So when I say adaptogen, this is a herb. There's a series of herbs that have certain characteristics to it. So adaptogen is something that has it can affect each and every system of the body in some good way. Okay, let me look. Yeah, not on that list. I wonder if it's an alternative then. Huh. Well, antimicrobial. Okay, so it looks like they put it under antimicrobial for sure. So there's echinacea under that, but it's one of those where sometimes you just don't know where it actually categorizes. But it's looking more and more like echinacea possibly could be in the same category type, similar to like the ashwagandha you hear about. Okay. And the other reason I do this is because then you can see these other medicinal choices out there. So when, the world blows up on, I'm sorry, ashwagandha, and you don't know about the other alternatives to doing essentially the same stuff, you don't know. And then maybe you pay too much or, those kind of things as well. So that's another big thing. All right. So that's echinacea. This is kind of cool. I want to go over this first. And then we're going to go into the last part, which is how do you take it basically? So, okay. So we've gone through what it does for you, which is pretty awesome. Now we got to see how it grows. Okay. So Echinacea species are hardy. They're hardy perennials that thrive in pretty much anywhere in the USDA. Hard is it 3 through 9. I think we're 4. I could be wrong on that. In the comments, if you know, I think we're 4. I want to say that. Ours is weird because it definitely has changed. It's definitely changed since I've been a kid. Much different winter times for sure, making them adaptable to a wide range of climate zones across North America beyond when cultivated. They prefer full sun, at least 4 to 6 hours daily, but can tolerate partial shade. Through shade, they may result in taller, lankier growths. Once established, they're exceptionally drought tolerant, heat resistance, and surviving in areas with annual precipitation as low as 12 inches. They like it more like 32 inches, but it is what it is, and responds well to occasional irrigation without becoming waterlogged. Okay, so why do I bring this up? Let me see if the next one is that. Okay, that's how to take it. Okay, why do I bring this up? Is because sometimes when you have native plants, when you have plants that can grow almost like with no maintenance, you don't have to do anything around them. If you're not a true actual gardener with flowers and all those things, like a lot of people get into, right? And the ones that aren't native to the area have to have a lot more maintenance. With native ones, they don't almost need anything. You could just basically put them in a field and leave them. And that's what Rachel and I were working on last year, and we're going to keep going. Half of our yard, we're making anywhere we're not mowing things, we're going to try to get some medicinal plants going. And Echinacea is one of our favorites because she does, I don't know if it's her magic thumb or it looks beautiful when it blooms. The blooms don't last as long as some people's landscaping ones, right? So I always suggest is if you have an area that's like weeded, you're not going to do much with it. Doesn't look bad, but you need something there. Throw some echinacea in there and then harvest it. Let it dry, do its thing, right? Problem is the echinacea roots, it'll pull right up out and you need that. And so that's why it needs to be harvested over and over again. That's why the concern of, because it's so good, like, and we start harvesting the crap out of it, because all the way to the root is really good medicinally, you would have issues. That's why all of us should make it an issue to make sure that we have our echinacea acreage. You know what I mean? And here's a cool part. Ready? It starts bringing in bees, native birds, all kinds of stuff. What does lawn mowing do us? Hopefully one day, if he's ever on, George, I have a buddy in George. He moved down south, George Wise, and one of my favorite lines he ever said, "Why do we mow so much land? Why don't we just do native cool plants like all over the place and then let it happen and then just mow paths," right? And I agree 1000%. There's so many reasons to do that, and I still am fighting that. I love my lawn being beautiful. I get it because it looks really good. But in the areas that you might not have that, maybe that's a first try. Grow some echinacea this year. Okay. So let's go on to the next one, into how you take it. Okay. So how you take it is usually echinaceas in capsules or dried powders. You can get them at like supplements stores, myfullscript.com, right? So I'll put that up there in the QR codes if you guys know how to do that. Let me do that real quick. Switch it up in my corner up here. That's the store that it's a store that's kind of linked to me, because me and you can communicate back and forth, or I can send you stuff. But in there is 35,000 supplements we could choose from. So if, let's say you said, "Hey, send me this," because it's so helpful in a room. Like when I'm adjusting somebody, they're like, "Man, what should I take?" And I don't have it at the office. I was like, "Do you have this?" And then I can just send it to them and then they can buy it later. Right. So I love FullScript. FullScript is fantastic, but echinacea comes in capsules or dried powdered extract, like the dried herb. And before we talked about it too, you want to take a good dose to do this and have an actual effect, right? This is a big thing. 300 to 500 milligrams of echinacea. Take it 3 times per day. Okay. We're only going to do this for a run, right? We're not going to do this forever. It's like 7 to 14 days. Okay. So that's the biggest thing. 7 to 14 days. This is not something you have to take all the time. You could, I think, maybe at a lower maintenance dose kind of thing. But with this one, to get that true effect, 300 to 500 milligrams 3 times daily is approved. Okay. So do it. My biggest thing is This is where I struggle. I don't do it well, and I don't get as much as I could, and I want to see the actual real effect. It's fantastic. Liquid extract or tinctures. Okay, so these are little liquids you can put in your tongue, you put in water, those kind of things. A lot more intensity. You only have to take like a teaspoon, a dropper ish. Dropper is that intensity in the dropper gets you through your medicine, basically. That's why I love tinctures. It's like so much better than shoving a bunch of supplements in your mouth all the time. That gets old pretty quick. But these tinctures, you can get a lot of good recovery there. But this one is up to medicinal dose would be 2.5 milliliters to 5 milliliters 3 times a day. Okay. So that's, I want to say 5 milliliters would be a full dropper. Okay. So a full dropper versus a half. And you can take it straight. That's what I usually do. It wakes you up a little bit because there's some that are built with glycerin. So they have like a little alcohol to them. Probably those are the best ones actually, because the intensity, it gives a better plant-based like all those things are better. You can mix it with water and juice. You can add it to a smoothie. If you want to use it for acute use, you can go every 2 hours. Okay. So let's say Echinacea is your go-to for like you have a big old respiratory upper respiratory infection. You will want to do that. So sometimes you'll want to go after it a lot harder. So every 2 to 4 hours, you should be taking Echinacea, right? How many people do that? That's why I got into this, like being a registered herbalist. I cannot wait to keep growing in this. Our next seminar, I got to look and see. But it's pretty awesome. It's pretty amazing, like to look at those things and then, see the actual when it works really well. Like I've seen it time and time again. Somebody will take elderberry. It'll actually work. Like they see it work in a kid or something, right? They take it like once and you can see the benefit. But taking it multiple times, because what happens in herbalism or herbals, you got to take it a few times, right? It's not as powerful as the chemicals they put in to last all day, right? That's the trick of medicine. Medicine has figured out the chemical structures to make things last longer, which isn't a downside. I'm not digging it. However, some of those chemicals are not as good for you as just the natural herb, okay, or the natural plant, right? Especially if you're making your own Echinacea. I'm pretty excited this year because Rachel's getting really good at drying this stuff out and making different things. We're trying to figure out different ways of storage and everything. So it's pretty cool. All right. Tea is my favorite for, wintertime tea, making it that way. And you use the dry roots and leaves. You steep it. So that means you just take the leaves and the roots and you put it in a pouch or something. Mine is, if you guys can see this, I always forget. Okay. So mine is got a little container inside of the actual cup. It's so easy. You just pour the leaves in. I have like lemon balm in there today. Pour it in, pour the water on top, let it sit, let it steep, let it get the stuff out, get the plant, the phytochemicals out of the actual the actual tea, right? You do it after 2 minutes, it isn't going to work very well. So do it for 10. Best is like 20 minutes if you remember it that long. Okay. So you do that for 10 to 15 minutes, and then you drink 1 to 3 cups of it per day. You want it, and then if you want it really strong, you just go up to 20 minutes per day. Okay. And use the roots. The roots have a ton of information as well. But there's other forms that, like, we're going to talk about in just a minute when we get to recipes for the last part of the day. So, key tips for safe and effective use. This is what I want to go over because there are some things, because you can have a rash, you can have all those things. So you want to make sure you're consulting the doctor, those kind of things. I just want you to have the information out there. if you do, it's relatively pretty good. We just got to make sure it's good. Start small is the biggest one, but timing and duration. The best is at the onset of symptoms. Okay, so we're going to talk about when to take it. Best is absolutely, we're going to take it at the onset of a respiratory infection, let's say, or prevent it. So you're going to take it acutely if you have something. So that's the stuff I gave you, 300 to 500 milligrams 3 times a day. That would be more acutely. Preventively, we do short bursts, or like what I tell people, runs. So I'm going to do a 7-day run of Echinacea, right? 7-day run of Echinacea, and it makes your diet unique too. So 7 to 14 days max for a major acute illness, right? But if you do a lower dose of preventative, it can be for long-term use as well. That's what they're suggesting. Maybe having that short-term stuff where it's a smaller dose could be really beneficial to the rest of your body too. But always, I like doing herbs in runs, because you get kind of bored of the same stuff, obviously. With or without food. You should take it with food or water, because sometimes if you take straight Echinacea, it can create a GI upset. So you want to take it with food or water. Topical uses. So topical uses, you use creams, ointments, or infused honey, when we'll talk about that one in a minute, to the affected areas like wounds, acne, that kind of thing. And it's very short term is fine. But it's very well tolerated, but possible side effects are, right, stomach upset, rash, allergic reactions. Okay. So now let's talk about some recipes. I didn't have a lot of great recipes for this one. I'll be straight up. As far as like food, like actual desserts, you're like, whoa, that looks good. Beets were all over the place. I didn't have enough slides for that one. But this one is basically just the Echinacea tea. I have the ingredients here. I won't bore you on it, but you take 1 to 2 tablespoons of dried Echinacea root with leaves and flowers, possibly too. And then you just put it in a bag or your tea, like create that tea bag, and then you steep it. Okay. Some people add in, though, to make it taste even better, because you can add some flavor to it. Some people have been adding ginger, cinnamon, turmeric, lemon juice, and honey to the taste. So you can add all of those things. I'll have this in my tribe1.substack.com, so you can take a look at all that, and how to do that exactly. But that is a really good tea. Sometimes just a straight Echinacea tea is good too, but you start using real natural honey, makes all the teas taste better. All right. So this one is cool. This is the next one I want to get for my kids, my parents out there. I think this is going to add a boost to the elderberry syrup crowd. There's a huge elderberry syrup crowd. Moms figured this crap out a long time ago. So they give their kid elderberry syrup. They make it at home. It's fantastic. Kid probably doesn't love it because elderberries sound good in theory, but they're not exactly as tasty as like raspberries or blueberries, right? But elderberry and Echinacea immune syrup, okay? But it is tasty because you put stuff in it, right? So for kids, you got to make it tasty. That's just the thing. And they will do it. A tasty, kid-friendly syrup for immune and inflammation support, often taken by the spoonful or in tea. Ingredients are 1 cup of dried elderberries, 2 tablespoons of dried Echinacea root, 2 tablespoons of fresh ginger, a cinnamon stick, and then you can put some 2 cups of raw honey and 3 cups of water. Okay, and then you simmer it all together, and then what else do you do? In water for 40 to 60 minutes. Mash the berries occasionally, strain through the cheesecloth for the fine mesh, extract the liquid, and then you can get up to 2 cups, cool slightly, and then stir in the honey until that dissolves. Then you can store it in the fridge up to 2 months or longer, and you can take 1 tablespoon of that for prevention of any kind or like illnesses like the respiratory infections. But adding echinacea to your elderberry syrup is really, really smart. Really, really smart. Okay, so this is the echinacea infused honey. So echinacea infused honey is a gentle, sweet way to enjoy echinacea. You stir into the tea, and you can spread it on stuff, and it's nice. It's leaning on that trend of the anxiety, like a really relaxing kind of thing. So you take raw honey, and then you take dried echinacea flowers and leaves or roots. You can do it all. Okay, so this is how you do this. So you fill a jar halfway with dried echinacea. Pour raw honey over it, stirring to submerge fully. Seal and let infuse in a warm spot. Gently warm it in a bath water for 2 to 4 weeks. Stirring occasionally, because you know how honey, you can, if you keep it warm, you can kind of move it around. Strain if desired, and then or leave herbs in for the extra strength. Use 1 teaspoon in your tea directly. That one sounds phenomenal. So now you have this tea, and now you're going to take this honey that you could add to the sweetness, but it also actually has echinacea in there. Because echinacea, it doesn't taste that crazy bad bitter, which is amazing. It does have some, I shouldn't say that. It does have a strong taste to it. So, but it can mask it because then you have the honey that goes around that. But yeah, could be fantastic. Creating your own, like, you're going to put honey and stuff. And Jeremy rolls his eyes all the time. Oh, you can't have honey. So think about that. Like, well, let's say you wanted honey in your coffee, right? So honey in your coffee, and it's just straight honey, still okay for you, but why not infuse it with some kind of herb? And now it's a benefit, right? So that's a cool way to look at it. All right. So for our final one tonight, hopefully you guys enjoyed it tonight. I know there's a lot. That's why I always say get on tribe1.substack.com and make sure so that you can get those recipes and like how to take it. Because we'll do the transcript right after this. And then we'll create it into a newsletter and get it out to you on that website. Okay. Or on that website. Very simple. tribe1.substack.com. So what are we going to do tonight? Go get some echinacea seeds. That's what I wanted you to do first. Throw it into the ground. Beautiful part of these, you'll probably accidentally grow them. You don't have to have a green thumb or anything with that. Check with me. A lot of times, if it's something you want to do on a regular basis, like let's talk about it. Let's see, different various ways we can make sure it's good for you. Check with your medical doctor as well if you're taking a ton of stuff. Especially for the respiratory stuff, guys. It's what it's known for. It works well for. Okay. So the echinacea, the respiratory stuff is super powerful. The problem is all like everything. The people that I know that use this on like religiously, okay, echinacea, they have good effects because they know how to use it. I'm telling you to take it 3 times a day, and you take 2 supplements in the morning, right? And then you forget about taking it and you feel like crap the rest of the day. You have to set yourself up for success. And that's how knowledge in herbals works. Okay. So a lot of times, if you're going to use an herbal, no matter what it is, see how you to take it. Because a lot of times nature didn't get tricked by the chemicals and all that stuff. There's no such thing as, echinacea, the 48-hour last you all the time. And if they do put in the future, if they do put echinacea 48 hours, the benefits last 48 hours, right? Like some certain pills do with this one little tiny pill. It's like, wow, how did you do that? It's pretty impressive. But natural healing, it takes more. It takes more medicinal dosages. It takes more of the plant to really get you where you want to go. Okay. So just don't forget about that full script thing. Very, very pumped that you guys hung out with me tonight. Hopefully you sprung ahead Dear Lord, that scared us. I was like, man, we had our event. We get home. And I'm like, man, I slept in. Like, my clock's all wrong. I had completely forgot about that spring ahead thing. It was wild. I was like, I've had that alarm clock for a long time. It's not done me wrong. Why is that being off? And then to find out, oh, we sprung ahead. Okay, so that'll be fun though. So tomorrow's supposed to be gorgeous. Hopefully, you guys have a fantastic week. 60, I've heard it was touching 70 sometime this week. We'll see. But if that is the case, the other thing around here, tonight, put a little prayer in for a little town in Michigan called Union City. They got hit by a tornado pretty bad on Friday. Like to get a few more prayers out there for those poor people. It just absolutely didn't make any sense. It was this kind of weather. No one thought any kind of weird weather was happening, and then all of a sudden it was on top of them. So with that, join us Wednesday. Join us on whole week Wednesday, where we go over some topics that we'll go over some health news topics of the week. And with that said, you guys have an amazing week. Hopefully this Echinacea will help you get that respiratory stuff out of your head. All right. Have a good one.